A lot of people think buying or selling property is just about timing the market, right? But finding the right place or choosing the right agent. But the truth is most people get stuck because they're confused, emotional, or they've been told 10 different things for like 10 different people.
Yeah.
Today I've got Ramon Raneal on, and he's been in real estate for years and has a background in finance and sales. He's been in the middle of a lot of real deals and real pressure and real decisions making. I've just learned that you went to the US for a number of years, which we'll talk about that. So this chat won't be a fluffy one. It'll be a real deal, and I want to get into actually what happens when people buy and sell and the emotion and how they make their decision. Yeah. And I want to learn a little bit more about that. So thanks for coming on, mate.
No, thanks for having me.
How did you get into real estate? Talk me through a little bit of the story that you shared before, how you got here.
Well, I guess kind of the original, the origins of me wanting to get into real estate started from the $1 Million Listings TV show. Do you remember the one back in the 2000s?
Yeah.
Ryan Serhant back in the day?
Yeah.
I used to watch that like every day. I didn't want to watch cartoons, and I liked watching that. And I wasn't, obsessed with the whole idea of, New York and selling and, $100 million commissions and things. It was just like how the job was that I was really addicted to. So
what part of it?
What do you mean? You're on the phone, you're on the fly, you're going into different places. It's like busy. It's not like you're just sitting in an office all day, clicking a mouse. Like it was it was that adrenaline that you could see that they had in the show. And obviously it was a bit of a reality TV show, but it was something that at a young age, that's when my love from real estate kind of came from a little bit, as well as just kind of understanding, how people in Sydney talk about property. It becomes infectious. And I think a lot of people get into real estate because they've been spending hours on realestate.com looking at, and scrolling through stuff, and they're like, oh, I could do this, right? Yeah, and so that's kind of like the short version of how my interest got sparked.
And you mentioned to me before you were 15 years old, you got scouted to go play basketball in the US, which, you did that for a little bit, and then it shaped you a little bit of your real estate career there as well.
Do you want to hear the story?
Yeah, tell me a little bit more.
It's actually crazy. So I started pretty much playing basketball at 11, which is pretty late. And I started playing all across Sydney, but I was never really a big time player. I wasn't on the state teams or the national teams or anything like that. But I was very committed and obsessed with the Kobe Bryant mentality, right? Just every single day, nonstop, obsessed with everything basketball. Like I'd sleep and have dreams of basketball. I'd wake up in the morning, play basketball. When I couldn't play basketball, I'd play NBA 2K. Like I was just endless, right? And one day I kind of just put it out there and I said, I can't do the HSC. I can't stay here. I got to go to the US. And I started saying it to my friends. I started saying it to my family, but not just like, oh, Hendri, I'm going to go to the US. No, it was like, this will happen. And I believed it when I said it. And I know it's a bit like, there's so many motivational speakers out there who speak about this kind of stuff, and you can believe what you want. But I started, that became something that I knew that was going to happen. Randomly one day on a random Friday, it was raining, and I caught a train. And I was 14 years old, caught a train into the rocks to play basketball. And there was 2 American coaches that were on holiday. And they were just standing in the corner of I don't even know how they rocked up here, who they knew. They just showed up, and they were watching me play basketball. And then afterwards, they came up to me. It's like and they were literally like, hey, look, we got a spot on this high school basketball team. We're the number 1 ranked high school basketball team in the world. We got an empty spot. Wouldn't it be funny if? And it was just like, my world literally started spinning, and I was like, I can't believe this. And literally, it's like the driveway dream you have. When you're shooting hoops in your driveway and a car drives past and you think it's like an NBA scout. It was literally that. And so it all happened at once, and I couldn't reject the opportunity to go over there, and I was so set on it. And so just took a whim, went over.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mate, I truly, you're talking to the right person if you're talking about manifestation and believing. Like, mate, my whole life is about that, So I was just posting on my Instagram the other day, like, I write down my goals every single year, every January, without a doubt. Yeah. And every December, I look back on what I wrote in January, and it's scary. Like, because I just write it down in every January. But then, and I'll look over it every once in a while, but it's scary what you actually tick off along the way without even realizing that you've ticked it off. Yeah. It started with something so small.
Have you got a big example of that in your life?
I could tell you when I was at 22 years old when I started the business. I just wanted, very small, superficial things. Like I wanted a nice suit when I started out, right? And I wanted a tailor-made suit. I wanted to go on a holiday at the end of the year for Christmas to Thailand, for example, when I was 21, 22. I wanted to get a Mont Blanc pen.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
I would write those things down. And they're only little things at the time, right? But it was big things for me for a 21-year-old, you know? So I would write it down and then I would put it away. And then somehow I would have come across it a year or 2 years later.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit, like I actually did all these things. I've got the pen. I went to the holiday. I didn't go to Thailand, but I went to Bali. And I got the tailor-made suit that I wanted. Over the years, obviously the goals become more and bigger and my goals have changed over the years. Like I've got a family now, so experiences and time away is very important to me. Less about the stuff, more about like you know, going on holidays and being with my, you know, my family and my daughter. So yeah, but I write everything that I want, investments, whatever goals. I highly recommend it, man.
How many Mont Blanc pens you got now?
I had a couple.
Fair few.
I mean, I lost one and two, and that's why I had to get the third. But it's there. So, anyway. I don't even use it now. Like I don't even know where it is.
It's funny how when you get to something, it just doesn't really matter as much too.
Yeah,
it's all about the journey. It's the main point. But
pivot back to your real estate career. So you were in this. You were playing basketball, and then how did you transition to real estate when you're in America?
I knew I had to get into that. I knew that was the area I wanted to explore. So that was tunnel vision on that. And pretty much around, I would say halfway, a little earlier than halfway through my college basketball experience. So I had a lot left of basketball to play. I met this guy in Cincinnati where I was playing college basketball, and he owned one of the biggest real estate firms in Cincinnati. And so through the connections, he obviously knew me from basketball. I met him, sat down with him, learned a lot off him, and you know, kind of got into the game of being an assistant in a completely different market to what Sydney, Australia has.
Yeah, and you were sharing it to me about that. So you worked in Cincinnati,
Chicago, and then Dallas, Texas.
What are the differences between the three cities and the types of buyers or sellers?
Yeah, good question. So Chicago's a big city. It's a bit like Sydney. You've got obviously transport infrastructure is times a million. Cincinnati, not so much. It's more of a recessed city, which is very interesting. So it used to have 500,000 people in the like 90s or 2000s. And that was because they had Procter & Gamble there. They had a whole bunch of businesses. I think it was General Electric had their headquarters there. And then they moved their headquarters to Boston. And then so everyone moved. And so now it's got 200,000 people. Wow. So it's a city that had a massive drop off in their real estate because people just all flocked out of it. It's a bit like how you see in some of these mining towns, right? And like Perth and surrounds. Sometimes when people leave, you know, the housing market collapses a little bit. So that's Cincinnati. And then Dallas, Texas is just land supreme, man. Everyone drives, no one walks. And you've just got the block sizes are ridiculous. Like it's a joke. Everything starts at, call it 2,000 square meters for a small house.
Yeah, wow.
And it just sprawled. Space between neighbors, cities like more dense, but it's there's not a whole bunch of high rise or anything in that regard. It's all the surrounding suburbs.
How does the buyers and sellers differ from each city and then comparing that to Sydney?
I would say Chicago, from what I was operating, I was more in the city, and a lot of people were a bit more superficial in terms of the areas they wanted to live and the neighborhoods they wanted to pick and choose. I'd say that's on crack in comparison to how people are here in Sydney. So it's like, oh, I need to live in this postcode. This is my neighborhood. I can't negotiate on that no matter what. Dallas, people were like, hey, look, can I have the lifestyle that I want? More centered around family, more centered around space, and almost like there's too many options to choose from as a buyer there. So it's kind of like get really nitty gritty on like, you know, what's my bathroom look like? Little things like that.
What are they like?
Space, like massive, like everything. I need multiple entertaining spaces. I need an area for a grill. I need to throw my football in my backyard. That kind of thing is often what I was finding over there. And then finally Cincinnati was more case by case, but a lot of people were kind of like that first home buyers audience, but they're buying houses. And obviously you look at the property prices over there, a standard house will set you back like 300 or 400K US. And that's like 4 bedrooms, you know, decent block. So
proper size house.
Yeah. So it was more dealing with people who were, you know, setting up families who wanted to buy over there too. So it's interesting.
And how does that differ with Sydney market?
Oh, like so much. Like Sydney we don't have the supply, and obviously we have a whole heap of demand. So we do things like auctions, which you didn't do in the US. You do things like you have, 90 groups come through an open home and they're like sprinting through and they're like, oh, I need this. And it's just so different in terms of the level of which our market is and the obsession that people have over property.
What did the buyers here really put emphasis on and importance on?
Depends on the segment. I think as a grouping it, and again, this isn't 100% accurate. There's always going to be outliers within this, but grouping it, I feel the bottom end of the market and the ultra top end of the market behave very similar in a sense. Yeah, that's what I would find. I find typically your first home buyers are very emotional and very sensitive to time as well. Usually that's just by choice, right? Because, they're not running multi-million-dollar businesses a lot of times, but they are very, call it the generations, very tech savvy, and they know that there's options out there online, and they're kind of not as attached when it comes to, the way their emotions can spike. It's the same with if you're dealing with a director of, multiple businesses who wants to buy that $8 million house. It's the same mentality. It feels very similar from negotiating to, the interest level to the speed of which they want to put offers in. It's very similar in that. I would say that middle end of the market is very family oriented. It's very, in parts indecisive, but in parts also just over analytical. And I find that that's where we're starting to see the market shift a little bit too.
Who's the easiest to deal with, do you think?
That ultra premium. Yeah.
Why is that?
It's super educated, super straightforward. They know exactly what they want. They just tell you.
But do they not ask more questions? Smarter questions or no?
Not necessarily. I would say that they definitely do know their stuff because they've transacted hundreds of times or whatever it might be. Yeah. But they're definitely not asking, the kind of questions that they can't just research themselves or delegate out. And so a lot of times, the questions might come from a surrounding family member or whatever it might be. But yeah, they're very, very straightforward, very ready to go.
What is the most important thing for them when they look for a property?
For that upper segment?
We could divide it up from the upper, middle, and lower.
I would say for the lower, it's security. A lot of times, I need to secure and own an asset. So a lot of it comes from how do I get in the door. That middle is about compromising on what you want and what you don't want, and being able to find that solution within the price category. So, quick example: family, their budget's $2.5 million. They want a 4-bedroom house in Stanmore. It's gonna be tough. But they also want parking, but then they find the one without parking and they go, you know what, we'll compromise on that because it fits our budget. So there you go. Versus that ultra premium, it's usually, a lot of it has to do with, it's either like the land size or the area or the feeling they get in the property, and it's quick, and they feel it, and when they want something, they go after it and they go get it,
That's so interesting, man.
That's what I see just more times than not.
Because we have clients in all aspects of that, and hearing what you're saying there is, I think it's completely true.
Yeah.
The bottom ends, they just want that security. Yeah. Well, because there's not much room for error in terms of cash flow, and there's not much room. It's not like they have the massive discretionary leftover income. Yeah. If they screw up or if there's a shortfall in each week or each month. Yeah. And so I think I completely agree there. The middle ground is actually the harder one.
Yeah.
Because they earn enough to have options, but it's not like massive options.
No.
And then they try to have everything there is in the one box. It's like, you can't. You have to pick something. Yeah. Like, you're either going to do that or you compromise on certain things.
100%.
You either have to go outer ring and further out and get the investment that's within the budget that's going to rent well. But because they own well, they want to be closer to the city and have the nicer property or the nicer postcode or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So it's very hard. Whereas the top end, it's actually quite simple. It's like, hey, I've got no time. I've got no bandwidth. Yeah. I've got no, mindset to do this. Yeah. Like, I trust you. This is why I hired you.
Yeah.
You do your job properly and help me out.
Yeah.
Like, that's truly how I feel.
Yeah. I'm glad you see it that way too.
Yeah. I mean, they are harder to get though, because I feel like they ask a lot more questions to make sure that you know what you're doing and you know your stuff.
They're going to make sure they know you. Yeah,
exactly. As soon as you tick that box, they trust you. Yep, I've battle tested this.
Yeah.
I trust you to do your job.
That's right. Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. I think we should get into a little bit about the real estate as a role, as an occupation. So from the outside, people see, all the cool stuff, the flashy stuff, the watches, the cars, the soul stickers, the social media. your face on every corner of the street, for example.
Yeah.
But what's the actual reality of being an agent on a day-to-day basis?
It's probably the hardest working job if you want it to be. There's a lot of people who, lose their families when they get into real estate. Genuinely. I've seen
Why?
it a million times. Maybe you'll have, and what I mean by lose their families, maybe you call it in a guy's position, they've got a wife and 2 kids, right? And they start into real estate and their relationship takes an immediate hit with their wife and then their kids. They're never around for their kids. They're never around for their wife. And then eventually it ends up being, well, you're not around, you don't prioritize us, you just provide. And that's your whole role. And on the flip as well, if you're, a woman in real estate, maybe you just don't end up with your family and don't end up seeing whatever it is. And it's so difficult. It's so difficult to nail that and have that balance, because once you start getting traction, it is like so addictive and you're just stuck. And all you're doing is answering calls late at night and sending texts during the morning, and you're up and you've got a million things to do, a million things. I think that's the one thing that people don't see on the outside.
What are you actually doing on a daily basis that makes you successful as an agent?
As in just overall?
Yeah.
I think just relentlessness constantly and sticking to the fundamentals. That's something I don't veer off. I think it's sales like anything else, right? And if you stick to your basics and your core fundamentals, you don't negotiate on what you want to give yourself, then you end up building a good pipeline routine every day. You're on the same kind of focus. So I think it comes down to like discipline, consistency, the whole bro science kind of, how do we get to this level kind of thing, So
I was telling you before, this podcast is my selfish way to learn. And so I'm sure somebody out there would want to understand how to be successful in this role. But what are the fundamentals do you think that makes a really strong agent?
Yeah, I think it's the same with agent, as salesperson, as athlete, as human being. I think it boils down to that. I think it starts with like discipline. When you say you're going to do something, you have to do it no matter what. So you're going to get up at 5 a.m., you got to get up 5. You can't get up 5:01. Like, it's got to be that level. And you see it with athletes, you see it with musicians, everyone, right? Like, you got to have that level of discipline. I think it all starts there. Your discipline wavers when you lose motivation, right? And like that's the thing that you need to, maintain your discipline and latch onto that when you don't feel like doing things. Like, your discipline can't change, because sometimes I don't want to wake up in the morning, right? Sometimes I want to sleep in because I'm tired. I've had a big week, right? And it's Saturday, and I don't want to get up at 5 on a Sunday and go work out. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. But you have to do it because you said you were going to do it. So discipline's one thing. Obviously, consistency, doing anything over a long enough period of time and showing up at the right time and being respectful and polite. It's just you give yourself the opportunity where you're just going to break through. And that's the thing with, again, I say it with sport a lot. I say it with anything. You want to be a chef, you want to be anything. It's those core things of discipline and consistency and kind of having the right mentality and approach to whatever industry you're in that I think translates.
Yeah, I think I would agree there. One of our key criteria is when we hire a new team member is we look for that grit, because I think that's one thing that you can't teach someone. So anyone from like a sporting background or they've done some hard things, or they learned like an instrument or something that which takes time and courage and consistency, that's what we really look for. So I think grit is probably the number one thing that is the most important. Skills wise, as long as they have some kind of idea and background, you can always teach it. Otherwise people just quit and halfway through when it gets a little bit too hard.
When it gets tough,
So walk me through, like, let's say you've got a listing now, you've got a live campaign. What are some of the things that is in the background that the buyers or the sellers don't even know, have no clue about what's going on in the background in your world?
So I guess, we'll go off that example. Let's say it's a listing that's going on the market, right? Like, there's something we're launching right now that's going on the market today. Prior to it going on the market, right, given it's all ready to go and the photos are out, every buyer's agent in the country knows about it. Every buyer who's looked at similar properties, bid or made offers, spoken about similar properties, has walked through inspections in other areas, they all know about it. And it's our job to get the marketing end of it out there. So from the seller's standpoint, they don't necessarily know that that's going on, but it shows in their result, but it's all about really getting everything super ready, from styling, painting, polishing, the whole lot, to having the photos taken perfectly. It's kind of like every little detail along the way. I think buyers don't realize that agents are there at the photo shoot, and half the time buyers don't realize as well that everything is curated to be advertised perfectly to them in their segment too. So if you're a first home buyer, the property that you're going to walk into is catered to you most times.
In what sense catered to you?
Catered to you in the sense that that it's going to be a first home buyer investment. We're not packaging this up to where even the brochures aren't for a premium, like top line property, right? Like you're walking through this and it's the language used in the copywriting is for a first home buyer. The photos taken are to show things that as a first home buyer is going to draw them into the property. Everything is designed in a way that we want to make sure that we don't miss out on the main target group for the property. And some properties have every target group, some have one, like downsizers only because it's a single level and it's like 2 bedrooms or whatever. It's going to be a downsizers. And, we just got to market that out in the best way. And I think buyers don't necessarily know that when they're walking into, they don't realize that they're essentially the whole play of the agent is to bring them there. So
what I want to figure out was the investment up front, because you said painting and doing things and touch up and as well as having furniture packaging, staging, right? Yeah. Where's the line where you're going to get the most return out of it versus like now you're just overdoing it?
Yeah. It depends on the property and it always will come down to the property itself. But in most cases, a paint, polish, and style won't hurt your property if it's just light work. If you're doing anything like waterproofing or you're doing anything over the top where you're chipping away at tiles and replacing new ones or adding, major elements of things like, you're doing a whole new landscape design, you may be overcapitalizing. And it's important not to do that. You don't want to spend more money if you're going to sell and move on with the property than you have to. But a lot of times it kind of sits in that you got to look at your property case by case. I don't think you ever overcapitalize by making sure your building and pest report checks out. What I mean by that is obviously when buyers walk through, they're going to want to know what the condition of the building is. And half the time they have a building and pest report to scan and have a look at what what builders are saying about the property. And if it all checks out, you don't want to sell a car that has a broken window. You don't want to sell a house that has termites. You don't want to sell a house that has structural issues and everything under the sun. So that's kind of like the first thing that you want to address. And then the second thing is just that light touch up that's going to make it present the best way possible to your property within the right budget, of course, right? If you're in a mortgagee situation, you need to sell straight away, I wouldn't recommend going through paint, polish style. Like get the house on the market quickly and let's get this thing to best suit their terms,
Let's talk sellers.
Yeah.
Right? If someone know that they want to sell, but they're scared to get the timing wrong, what do you tell them?
Well, it depends on what their situation is. Like, are they like level with me here? Let's say, give me an example, right? Like, are you selling because you want to upsize because you've got 2 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment?
Yeah, I think that's probably the better example because I don't want it to be like a situation where it's an urgent thing, right? Like if somebody is separating or it's, like if they have the time and they're like, oh, well, should we buy that new other place?
Yeah.
But they, for example, one of the properties I listed was in December. Like it's not the best time to list. What would you say to someone that, trying to get the timing right? Well, let's wait for spring.
Right, yeah. So like if it's in that situation where you're let's say like you're in an apartment in, I'll call it Marrickville, right? You're in a 2-bedroom apartment, you got 2 kids, you're overgrown it by a mile, right? And your kids are starting school in February, high school or whatever, right? Yeah. It's like you don't want to move in February, do you, right? So it's kind of like dependent on their situation, right? And how they want to time it up with their life too. I think that's very important. If you buy and sell in similar markets, it's obviously, kind of you're targeting that so that you can minimize the risk of a market shift. And so it really all falls back on what the personal preferences are within it. I think a lot of times if you're selling an apartment, you want to buy a house, you don't want to wait 3 or 4 years. I know it can sound a bit daunting, but you want to make that decision quickly because the housing market's growing, land is growing like crazy, right? Like your housing market, I'll use like inner west metrics, right? Like 8 to 10% per annum growth in a house.
Wow.
Certain apartments, I mean, I've looked at apartment markets across the inner west and even in surrounds, 0 to 1% in growth.
Yeah, and the numbers are obviously it's totally different too.
Give
like
yourself
on an
2 years of
apartment.
waiting. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
just shooting yourself in the foot if you're going to buy a house anyway. So it's kind of like it depends on the situation. It depends on what your personal life looks like too. Because yeah, that example, you're divorced or you're getting a divorce, you want to get out of there as soon as you can. You don't want to hang out with your ex, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So go, like, you know, or like get to that next point in life where you're going to be at peace with your mind, you know?
And how do you manage the seller's expectation? Because every seller will want a certain price.
Yeah,
It's their home or their property.
Yeah.
Every buyer has a certain price,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm more concerned about interested in the seller's point of view. Like they want a super high price as always.
Yeah.
How do you manage the expectation with them?
Sellers want to sell for the most in the world, and the buyers want to buy for the lowest that they can
cheapest.
possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's always interesting to see that dynamic. But I think the best way, and I've lost listings in the past where I've been upfront and honest, and I've been like, guys, this is the price of your property. Look at the market value. Look at all these comparables. And then I've won listings where I've been upfront and honest, and I've been like, these are the comparables. This is what your property offers. Everyone else who's telling you something different, dig deeper into why. And it's the shift in the way I've said both those two things. One is just over negative Nancy. Everyone hates you. You're an agent that's just, there to bring them down on price so you can make your job easier. You don't believe in my property. The second one is, this is like a doctor or something, right? Giving me the news that I have this illness or whatever. But it's just like, this is the reality. Give them the reality in the best light. And so how you say it. And so for me, I don't like to sit around and fluff numbers. Every number that I put out in terms of what your property's worth is based on statistics, facts, value. Now we've got AI estimates. So half the time they're looking at their apps on their phone and they're like, my property's worth this, according to realestate.com, domain, ChatGPT, whatever it is. And they're sitting there and they're going, well, why do you think my property's worth this? And you got to give them that, the why to it. So a lot of times it can take you a long time to get to that point. And I'll admit with some sellers, they want $10 million for their 1-bedroom apartment. And it's like, okay, well, we gotta sit here and dig deeper into why you think it's worth that and how we're going to get even close to that. But then your process gets you, to where the point where you can be a vote of confidence, because no property always sells. Well, some do bang on market value, but the majority of properties out there, a good agent makes the world of a difference, because you're going to make an extra 100, 200K on it.
How could that be?
Process. You nail the process. You do everything right from start to finish. You sit back, you relax on auction day, or you sit back and you relax in terms of if it's a private treaty, and there's your offer, and there's the sale, and you're like over the moon. You're like, I can't believe we got this, because we just got the process exactly right from start to finish. Competition.
But how can a weak versus a strong agent get you an extra, whatever the number is, 100, 200, 350,000, depending obviously the price.
Yeah.
How can a strong agent get you that?
Yeah.
In terms of the process in itself.
Okay. You like cars, right?
Yeah.
What's your like make of car that you like the most?
I drive a Porsche.
You drive a Porsche?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I like
jealous.
Porsches.
Okay, so you drive a Porsche. If you're walking into a secondhand dealership and you've got the Porsche you want in front of you, and someone walks up to you and they're like, "Oh, look, it's a nice car, but I mean, it's and doing those ones, and we can, it's cool." And then you go into a Porsche dealership and you see the exact same model, exact same price, and you're just roped into the seller. Like, you go on the test drive, you feel amazing. You genuinely are like, this is the car. Which one are you going to pull the trigger on in the moment?
So does that mean it's more about high enthusiasm, energy?
It's more about what you want to hear too. I find that's the key.
What you want to hear?
Yeah.
How do you
I
mean?
feel like that's what people miss a lot. And I'm giving away a little bit too much on this, right? Like, but it's okay, so Jan, you like Porsches? No? He doesn't like Porsches.
No, he doesn't like any cars.
He doesn't like any cars. Okay, there you go. But Jan, imagine you're going into a dealership, right? Like, you're going into a Porsche dealership. Both of you have been given a free Porsche, right? You're walking into a Porsche dealership. You're there to pick it up. And you sit down in the car. You have to do the test drive. That's all. That's the one thing. You have to do the test drive. You're sitting down, and the guy is just, oh yeah, this is the horsepower. This is the specs on it. You've got this, and you're zoning out. Right? You're falling asleep because you're like, you don't love cars, right? You don't know about all the little details and the finite little things about the engine, and he's just going off about how many cylinders it has. You're just looking at the road and you're zoned out, right? Versus if he's saying that to you, you might be like, oh shit, has this many cylinders? All right, the engine's, all right, okay. It's, you want to hear something different to him when you go to a car dealership, just like how a first home buyer who is maybe from the area that you're selling in wants to hear something different to a first home buyer that's, you know, from a completely different area and just wants to get it done. You know, like people have different walks of life. People have different impulse in terms of what they want to do, how quick they want to buy, how slow they want to buy, how much due diligence they want to do, how, you know, they want to feel walking through the property too. Sometimes people don't want to, like my fiance, right? I love her so much. She's amazing. If she's walking through a property and an agent's like there telling her about the cabinetry, it's like, no, don't stop speaking, right? Like versus me, if I'm walking through a property and I want to buy it and the agent's telling me about the cabinetry, I'm, oh yeah, where's that from? You know, like people are different, right? And so you want to cater to that kind of person and you want to understand people. And if you can do that, that's how you sell a property well versus let it pass in an auction.
Good. All right. That's very insightful because it sounds like you're catering to very specific to whoever the specific buyer or the seller is, and because you got to communicate in a way that they want to communicate in terms of their style.
Yeah.
And everybody has different importance, preferences, and so you got to figure out what that is. Asking lots of questions, I'm assuming.
100%.
Yeah. Nice. Let's move over to like about the market right now, right? You know, everyone's feeling the pressure right now. We talk about inflation and interest rates, and you know, so. What's that doing to the market in real terms? What are you seeing at the moment?
New South Wales clearance rates, you know, aren't very strong, and they've been that consistently. You know, typically they hover around 60, 70%. Now they've been for the last 3 or 4 weeks around that 45%. Doesn't include your withdrawals a lot of times, so it is a more inflated figure. So the market is starting to, I guess, kind of slow down a little bit across New South Wales and Sydney. That said, we still have a major thing that I think no one's talking about. It's if we slow down in terms of the market for the time being, construction will slow down as well based on the economy. That means less things are being built. Supply and demand is not going to get addressed. That's why we have a big market. Use that US thing, for example, right? Why are people in Dallas, Texas complaining about a bathtub in one property versus another one? Because they've got so many options, right? Like you have a look at here in Sydney, you get people who have a laundry list of, I need this in my criteria, and they get 1 or 2 things when they buy, and they're happy. You don't get that over in, you know, places where you have a lot of supply. So we're not addressing our supply and demand.
Is there a particular group that's still winning in this market right now, do you think?
I think it's leaning a buyer's market right now, but I've also seen the opposite happen depending on what area you're in, where sales go up through the roof. And vendors are, you know, celebrating and cheersing to champagne, you know, champagne cheersing each other. So it just depends on that too. What are you feeling in terms of the market right now?
Yeah, everybody, you know, I think it's human nature when there's headlines and that we overreact and we get emotional about things. But what I find is after being in this business for, you know, 11 years, you get that spike of like, you know, uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then after a little bit, within 1 or 2 months, yes, it's not going to be hot. It's not going to be, you know, an amazing market, but the demand just kind of comes back because, like you said, there is a massive supply constraints. And so like we can't fix that problem anytime soon, you know, and so even for the next 5 years, 6 years, we're not going to meet the expectation of what we need to build.
Yeah.
So the demand is always going to be there.
Yeah.
Yes, there's going to be a little bit of a dip because of the headline news, but after a while, people just get over it.
Yeah.
You know, like during COVID, we all, that, you know, 2020 March, we all kind of freaked out. The stock market tanked 30%. But then by September, we were all...
Market was booming.
It was back, you know. So I think it'll be similar. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Australia's going to get tougher in terms of, you know, the cost of living and all of those things. But the people who needs it, the people who has the money, they're still going to be able, you know, they still need to do what they need to do. And if you can't do that $2 million house, you're just going to have to go down to that, you know, 1.8, 1.7 because interest rate's a little bit higher. Or I don't think waiting is the best thing because, because of the supply constraint, I think prices will still manage, if not grow a little bit more over the next few years.
And another thing, I always look at the most basic fundamentals. I think that's the safest thing to do. Again, maybe it comes from sport. I don't know where it comes from, but I always like to look at things very simply and holistically. Look at Sydney. What a place to live. The weather is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like the best in the world.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have snow. My good, go, Jan. You're gonna go next trip. You're gonna go somewhere where it's snowing like crazy. You'll hate it after 3 weeks. First 2 weeks, you're like, oh my goodness, there's snow.
Yeah, it's
Winter
magical.
Wonderland.
Yeah.
And then you slip on some snow, and it's the worst. So we've got the best weather. We've got amazing, if not the best food. Right? Some people are saying Melbourne has whatever, and then they're saying we've got best people, the best areas, the best like element of life. You can live the best life here, and you hear it from immigrants. I come from a family of immigrants. They love Australia because they know what it's like everywhere else. Even when I was living in the US, coming back here was a culture shock because I was like, after 8 years, I'm back here and I can go to the beach and I can have the best coffee and I can enjoy the weather. And everything is just so nice. We've got great transport. We've got great things on.
Yeah.
And that's an area that people would want to continue to come to Sydney because of that. As long as we have population growth and we have low supply, prices will go up.
Absolutely.
And so that's the main thing. And I'm seeing people from America come here now in record numbers. I'm seeing people from Brazil come here in record numbers. I'm seeing people from all different countries just want this lifestyle because it's so desirable. It's such a young country. So it just seems like sky's the limit. And people lose track of that when a news headline comes out about petrol price. And it's like, when will we learn, you know? So anyway. Yeah.
You were saying like, you know, supply's tight. We're talking about supply's tight. You know, migration is strong. All these things are completely true, which means it's hard to buy a property, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just not enough of it. And so when people keep missing out, what do you say to those buyers that keep missing out? And, you know, what can they do differently so that they can actually get what they need?
Well, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Yeah.
And no, seriously, I remember when I was buying my first property, I missed out on like 3 or 4. And I was like, should I just stop? Should I give up? No. Like you're going to miss out on a couple of times and it kind of sucks, you know, maybe you lost at auction and it's a bad feeling, but there's going to be another property out there that's similar that you'll eventually like. And you want to enter the market. And so that way you own an asset and you can maybe one day borrow against that asset and structure your portfolio and have, you know, streams of income coming in. You want to get to that point, right? Of what the Australian dream is and Australian wealth, right? So go and get that, you know, and it sucks to lose and it sucks to miss out. But I think the culture of Australia is you're going to miss out a few times before you get the one, right? And so whether it's your primary, residence or it's an investment property or whatever it might be, I wouldn't, if someone's missing out right now and listening to this, I would say just keep trying, you know, it's going to happen eventually. And if you don't keep trying, then it won't happen. And that's the one thing
you'll probably get priced out eventually.
Well, there you go, right?
Yeah. Or paying more, depending on your situation.
Or paying more. That's right. Yeah. So
let's talk about agents. Choosing an agent. I want to help my audience out. And so, if you're choosing an agent and you didn't know them, what would you actually look for?
First thing I would ask the agent is about their story, and I think people don't do that enough. Like, I want to hear where that agent's from, what their background is. I want to know who that person is, like to their core.
What are you looking for?
Discipline. I'm looking for someone who's going to fight for my property.
Right.
And I've sold with another agent prior to being in real estate in Sydney.
Right.
And I interviewed a couple of agents, but what really did it for me was, I could pick an agent that was similar in terms of someone I could bet on. You know, and you're picking someone to bet on, right? You're only going to know them 4 weeks, 6 weeks max. They do a 2-week off market or whatever it is. So you want to pick someone you're going to bet on that's going to be able to execute with the most valuable asset in a lot of people's lives. So you're betting on someone, but find out who you're betting on. People skip over that, you know?
And when you're asking these questions and you're trying to figure them out, what are some red flags you're like, nah, this ain't it?
If they're, what do they call it? Fig jam. If they're like so up themselves and they're like, this is how amazing I am. And it's kind of like a bit, it's a bit annoying. It can be for everyone, but you want to see, a decent track record, but you also don't want to pick someone who's, I'm all experienced. And they've got 50 other properties on or whatever it is, call it 10 other properties on the market. And they're all experienced, but they've been doing it so long that they're just kind of out of touch with it and they're just not as sharp on the ball and they don't care as much. You don't want to pick that. You don't want to pick, the type of agent that is, kind of maybe tacky. I think there's a lot of tacky agents.
What does that mean? Tacky? Like
You
what?
know, like really like trying to be all flash and almost like you're speaking to a screen, not a person. I see a lot of those agents and I think, how the fuck do people pick these guys? Like, oh, mate, market update. It's like, what are you? Like, it's just, there's a lot of people that don't speak like humans and it throws me off. And so I wouldn't want to pick someone who's very artificial, right? I want to pick someone who's a bit more emotionally in tune and someone who can guide the property in the way that I want my buyers to see, so.
Is there questions that people don't normally ask that they should be asking?
Yeah, I think the main one is the fee, so the commission. So that's technically negotiable and people don't really know that. I feel like that's something that, people just, that's the fee. Okay. Well,
yeah. What's your fee? Here it is. And he's
like,
okay,
and that's
cool.
it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. But that's like, technically you could, you can do a fee of 0.1% or whatever. Like, so get to try and test them on that. And the one thing I'd say is if they negotiate on their fee, don't use them. People that's their livelihood as an agent. They're going to negotiate on that. What are they going to do to a buyer walking in who's like, I want 50K less? Their fee's redundant in that case, right? Like they should be able to protect their fee. So I think that's something where you want to pressure test a little bit.
So going deeper on that,
Yeah.
what do you think as a percentage of Sydney agents are actually good agents?
Good agents, I've only come across a handful of really people who I thought, wow.
So if you had to take a wild stab.
I would say, look, good agents, I think there's 10 to 15% of the agents in Sydney are good agents. Some agents, what defines good, by the way, is they get good sale prices. It's like if you're a barber and you're a good barber, it means you cut good hair. It's not about being able to get people in the door. And people don't understand that. Agents think it's all about getting the listing. Oh, I'm just chasing the cheese. Like, no, it's about being able to say what you're going to do and execute on a good sale price. So I think there's about 10 to 15% across like the Sydney metro markets. But I think great agents is only about 1%. Yeah.
What's the difference between good and great, do you think?
Executing on that, getting that extra little bit. And that extra little bit can be 50,000. But the difference in a metaphor is the buyer is just absolutely exhausted. And they're like, I've made a mistake. And it's just done. That's like a great agent.
Right.
Good agent is like, oh, well, you guys came to a nice agreement. Perfect. We got a great price. Hell is happy. Buyer's happy. Well, not that happy, but, we're at least at that point. That great is when the buyer hates you. And won't ever, well, they'll use you, but they won't ever want to talk to you after.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Because I can clearly see the two with my two separate transactions.
Yeah, right.
One was a pretty great agent, and then the other one was, good. Because buyers and sellers were happy, as you were saying.
Yeah.
I'll take it, but it wasn't like,
it wasn't like, fuck.
Yeah,
that kind of feeling, yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap up with a rapid fire.
Let's do it.
What's one financial move Australians should be making right now?
This is rapid fire. I'm going to take a while to answer this one. One move, I think you want to own property. It's just like a logical decision. If you don't own property, then you're going to look at the property market in 10 years and be like, oh, I should have bought back then. So own property.
Auction or private treaty?
Auction.
What's the biggest lie people believe about real estate agents?
That they're all liars.
What emotion drives more property decision, fear or greed?
Fear.
Houses or units?
Houses.
What would you tell your younger self before buying your first property?
I'd say good job. I'd say good job. Good job that you're getting into this.
Nice.
I'd encourage myself. I'd say, I don't want to shift anything around,
Out of all the buyers and sellers you've worked with, the ones who got a good outcome and look back with their decision, what did they have in common?
They listened. They were there. They listened. They were like, okay, yeah, sure. They didn't fight me on every little bit and piece. Some of them did, right?
Yeah.
But some people question every single little thing and they make it this whole thing. But those that listen and trust the process, they end up, being on the same page and get a good result.
Nice. And for the person listening right now who's been thinking about making a move for the last 12 months but still hasn't done anything, what would you want to say to them directly?
For buying or selling?
Selling. That's what you do.
Yeah. For selling, if they haven't thought about making a move in the last 12 months, think about what happens if you don't make the move in the next 12 months. What are you gonna miss out on? What's your opportunity cost?
If they only do one thing this week after listening to this, what should it be?
Spend a lot of time on realestate.com. Have a look at the market right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on my Instagram. I post a lot of funny stuff, as Jan knows. You can find me. You can find me on TikTok as well. My handle on TikTok is Ramon Raneal. On Instagram, it's ramonraneal.agent.
We'll drop that in the description. But man, thanks. That was a fun.
Thank you so much.
Fun podcast, man.
Yeah, I like it.